Hello, scrappers, recyclers, and investors. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every week we're talking about what's going on in the precious metal market, industrial metal market. We have a safety topic and then general discussion. It is great to be back with you all. We all know that we weren't up last week, had to take care of some family business. You got to do what you got to do. So it is great to be with everybody, and I'm looking forward to having a really fun live stream. Let's see here. Who do we have waiting? We got Richard. Welcome. David Philly. Welcome. Scrapping Irish is in the house. Welcome. Great to have you. Roger at CU Scrapping. Great to have you here. Let's see. Who else is joining? Folks saying hi. E-Waste Mike is in the house. Moxie Bashwell, welcome, Moxie. Great to have you here. Great Gambler. I'm not a great gambler, but welcome, Great Gambler. Great to have you. That's a hard one to say, too, if you try to say it too fast. Andy Patadoo's in the house, Electronic Scrappers with us. It is awesome to have everybody on board today. Now, we are windy like crazy out there today. Cold front came through overnight. So yesterday was raining like a big dog. Today it is very cold, down in the 20s and windy. So remember, I live up in the mountains, and when we get windy weather like this, all it takes is one tree limb coming down in the wrong spot, and we lose connectivity. So if I suddenly disappear, I'll try to get connected back up, but it could be one of those weather events today. Now, yes, the tree is still up, but it's coming down tonight. So it's the last night for the tree for another year. So don't give me any grief on the tree. We've been scrambling. Some of you probably saw the video that I put out yesterday about timing. I have to get my knees replaced, and they were scheduled for the 31st of March. The doctor's office called late last week and said, we've got an opening on the 3rd of February. The doctor wants to move you up. So all of a sudden, we are scrambling like crazy because we are behind the power curve now very quickly. So there's a lot of work that has to get done here very fast. And somewhere in all of this, I have to help Mrs. Shark take down all the Christmas decorations. Oh, man. So, yeah, what are you going to do? All right, let's see. Great Gamer says he just got 30 pounds of Bear Bright from his brother, and they're paying $4.60 near him. Very cool. Always nice when it just gets handed to you like that. Only get about 20 for the Christmas lights. Yeah, Christmas lights don't pay well. There just isn't a whole lot of copper in the Christmas lights. And what is this? He types to, okay. Richard's just talking about how slow he types. No problem. No problem. And Kerosene Cucumber's in the house. Welcome, Kerosene. Great to have you here. All right. Well, we've got a lot to cover because I was gone last week. I want to cover gold and silver, copper and aluminum. So we need to move right through as quickly as we can. So we are going to get right over to gold. Now, I will reiterate that I am not sponsored by APMEX. I get no remuneration from APMEX. APMEX is just one of the sites like Kitco and JM Bullion that I have used to trade and buy and sell my physical gold and silver. And the only way that I recommend people have gold and silver in their portfolio is physical gold and silver. Because if you don't hold on to it, if you don't have it in your possession, you can't do anything with it. And that little piece of paper that some electronic certificate says you own isn't worth the paper it's painted on. So get your gold and silver for sure, but get the real stuff through a place like APMEX. All right, gold is doing gangbusters. Look at this. We're up at 4,526.50. So that's up 3.5% for the week. Now, it wasn't, of course, a smooth ride. You can see we had a lot of variability, a lot of churn on the major signals. We started the week climbing. We had some correction activity going on here, and then we started climbing out again. So, nice. It's a good signal going on there. Let's get up here. Let's go to the 1 month signal. We look at the month, things smooth out a little bit, but essentially you can see that we climbed for most of the beginning of the month. We corrected, and then we've been climbing up at the end of the month. Again, these kind of markets are going to be volatile, and there's ways to take advantage of that if you're flexible and you're paying attention and staying on top of things. When we look at the year, we have this real nice slope going on here. I mean, look at this. This is such a nice slope for the year. We're up 71.47%. Now, if you want to fine tune it, you can say, well, we had to climb here and then we sort of flattened out and then we climbed to this peak where we corrected. And then we've had some churn inside of this. But for the most part, we've overall been climbing for the whole year. Gold has been climbing, and we've been talking about what's going on here. We've talked about it, but let's get over to our favorite place to get some more details, though, and pop over to the trading economics, and let's bring up the gold part of trading economics. There we go. So again, this is also a 1 year look. The chart's on a little different, scale, so that's why it doesn't the same general pattern, but not, perfectly the same. It is the same if you tuned everything up. But this is on 1 day increments, and that's why you see some of this churn a bit more. Gold rose around 0.3% to above 4490 per ounce, pairing the early losses as softer U.S. labor data reinforced expectations for Fed rate cuts. Remember, when the Fed cuts the rates, the interest rates go down, and when investors look at what can I make by putting money into a CD, a bank account, savings, a bond, a stock. Well, if the interest rates are down, they're probably not going to make as much. And so they'll move towards silver and gold because they're not losing money on what could have been earned in just straight interest rates. So having lower interest rates is good for precious metal investment market. Add to that the volatile times going on in the world. The U.S., some want to call it, whether you call it an invasion, an abduction, the U.S. going in and taking Maduro out of Venezuela, capturing oil tankers, that geopolitical churn, along with, there's still a war going on in Ukraine, and you've still got a lot of other geopolitical uncertainty going on, like Gaza, and so there's just a lot of churn. And whenever there's a lot of geopolitical risk and churn going on, investors, again, go into precious metals because those are less susceptible to the potential geopolitical changes going on. So there's a lot of reasons why gold and silver are both climbing. And unfortunately, those tend to be bad things for a lot of people, but they're good things for investors and for us in the scrap world because it means that our gold-bearing scrap our computer boards, our RAM, our CPUs, those are worth more. And places like boardsort.com are going to continue to raise prices or at least hold them steady in order to keep giving us good prices because they see these prices going up like this. Let's take a look at the forecast, and we see here a nice upward slope for the gold forecast. And what are they saying here? They're looking at 4,800 ish in the next 12-month time frame. If we look even a little bit further out, during the week, the research that I did showed that there are people that are saying that we could see gold in the $6,800 range by 2040. So there's still some good upward run on gold, and that's a good thing. All right, with those kind of numbers, with this slope for the 1 year period, and with the long term forecast being so bullish, we in the scrap and recycling business have good confidence that we should be bringing in our stuff, we should be selling our stuff. And if there are things that are worth that you can hold on to, gold bearing material that don't take up a whole lot of space, and you can hang on to them a little bit, like RAM, well, then it might be worth keeping some of it back in anticipation of these higher dollar values. Now, of course, part of our challenge with the recycling and scrap market is that computer boards take up space. They're kind of bulky. And so it's really hard to stack a lot of them, for something in the future. But there's other gold bearing material like RAM and CPUs, gold cornered BGAs that don't take up much space. So those kind of things are an opportunity to hold back if you don't need the cash and watch this gold value go up even further. And then, of course, if you're in the gold recovery business, well, you've got your gold and you can decide if you're going to try to sell it to your coin shops, your jewelers, the folks that might be buying that gold from you. Let's see. We've got a few comments on gold here. We've got Richard says he added another 3.5 grams this weekend. Very good. Got some more in the works right now. That is very cool. Keep on banging away at it, man. Keep on banging away at it. And we're going to talk about copper in a minute, so we'll save that comment for copper. Aiden, the German dude 15 is in the house. Welcome. Great to have you here. We're doing good. Thank you. Great to have you here. Let's see, any other gold comments going on here? Nope, don't see any other gold comments going on here. So we will head on over to silver right away. We'll get the precious metals knocked out, then we'll get over to the industrial metals. So I want to go back to this, and I want to go back here to APMEX, and I want to go to the silver chart. And we're going to go back to the 1 week. All right, so silver, I've really enjoyed watching what's been happening with silver, and I'm going to talk a bit more about silver here that I did with gold, because there's some interesting things here for silver for us to toy around with. All right, so silver is 80.63, that's US dollars per ounce, and we can see that we've had a lot of volatility on silver here. Overall, when it overall for the week, it's up, right? But you can see what happened was we had this climb out here, and then we corrected, and now we climbed back out again, and it looks like we might be into another kind of plateauish looking thing here. It's hard to say. If we look at the 1 year signal, well, this is just really nice here. When you see that kind of, we were cooking along here, then we had a nice steep rise, a correction, and then we got this really steep rise going on here. So silver's been looking really good for us here. Now, there's a number of things that are important for us to think about with silver, because there's the question a lot of people are asking themselves, should I be buying silver? And I assume that, people are going to be asking the same question about gold, but let's talk about silver here for a minute. Should you be buying silver? And is there going to be a correction when it comes? So let me show you here. Let's go to all, and you can see that we've had some interesting times here. We had this spike in silver here, and if we go to the trading economics site, I think we will be able to go back even further. Let's see. Yeah, so this is important because we look at this. We had a silver spike back here in 79. We had another one in 08 to 11. And now we've got the spike that we're living through right now. And so it's a very logical question to say, well, after the spike, after these two big spikes, there was this crash. So should we expect another crash? And I thought there was a really good discussion that a number of folks were making on this. This particular spike here was caused by the Hunt brothers trying to do a run on silver. It was a singular event. They were trying to do it. They failed, and then there was a crash. This spiky period here, if you want, we could even just box in here. So this period from 08 to 011 was again a singular driving event. That was the banking industry, right? So we had the market crash because of real estate and bad loans and stuff. When the banks got their act back together, the price on silver again crashed back down again. What we're living through right now, this spike that we're living through right now, is not because of a singular event. We've got geopolitical tensions that have been brewing for a while, and the current U.S. administration adds to that. We've had some market volatility from the lowering interest rates and stuff, driving people into into silver and such because of what's going on with markets and tariff and such. And then you've got the rise in the demand for silver for electrification requirements, EVs, AI data centers, and those sorts of things. So you have multiple things coming together to influence this spike. And so the question becomes, would any one of those things getting turned around cause the market to crash? Because we've got these multiple influences driving this spike, we need to have multiple things get corrected in order for the silver market to crash. So the general consensus and the thought, and I agree with this, is that the prices will correct at a certain point, but it's not going to be a crash. It's going to be sort of a softer correction. And then, of course, if you look at the longer term forecast for silver, Out into 2027, 2030, folks are saying 133 to 143 an ounce. If you, some folks are even saying 200 an ounce. But then again, there's also the more moderates who are saying, yeah, we're probably looking at it getting back down into the 70-ish range. So you've got a lot of variation in what people think is going to happen with the silver. It probably will correct. It's probably not going to be a huge, terrible correction. So there is still some room for silver. So let's think about it from our perspective as scrappers. We don't get as much silver bearing material as we do gold bearing material. You got silver mylars, you've got silver contacts. So there is silver out there, and it's worth getting it and selling it where you can. If you're into precious metal recovery, go ahead and pull that silver out. It's not doing you any good as a silver mylar. So if you pull it out and you have it as the physical silver, well, yeah, you may have paid more in the acids than what it's worth right now. Maybe not, though, at this price. But you're banking on it continuing to rise. And I also was looking at a number of sources. Now, you all know that I haven't done precious metal recovery, so I can't speak definitively on this. But a number of sources that I looked at, it looks like if you were to collect up 120 mylars, so that's 60 keyboards with the average silver mylar. 120 of those would give you about an ounce of silver. That's kind of what it looks like from folks that I was looking at during the week online. So, there's some potential there for you to get some decent silver from the mylars. And then, of course, silver contacts, you can get your silver there. But here's another thing that I want to look at with silver while we're on the subject. I'm going to go back here to the APMEX site. Got to do this. We do this. We've talked about the gold to silver ratio before. So I want to go down here. Now, right now, remember, we're on this. This is looking at as far back as APMEX goes, which is into the mid 1990s. Let's take a look at the gold to silver ratio. And I want to draw your attention to this drop right here that we're living through. This is what's going on right now. And we're down here in the 50-ish range. This might be, and what this is saying is that, and I'm going to go ahead and change this so we can see a better, clear number here. We're looking at 56-ish, right? So gold to silver ratio is between 60 and 54 for the week. So here we are, we're at 56. So that means it's going to take 56 ounces of silver to get you 1 ounce of gold. And if you look at the long-term trend of the gold to silver ratio, you would have a very good reason to expect that number will climb back up again. So if you right now took 50 ounces, 56 ounces of your silver, traded it in for an ounce of gold, and then hang on to that ounce of gold, well, when it climbs back up here to this 100 or so range, now you can trade that ounce of gold in and get 100 ounces of silver. So, this, when you see the gold to silver ratio drop like this, then it's time to think about maybe turning some of your silver into gold. And I mean physically turning it in. Go down to in some cases, your pawn shop, your coin dealer might actually let you do a direct trade because of another thing that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. So, maybe you can just do a direct trade without having to cash it in and then spend the cash on the gold. So the gold to silver ratio is actually looking pretty good right now if you want to play that game. So that's something to think about. The other thing that I found that was very interesting this week when I was looking through researching what's going on with silver and gold was a lot of discussion about people saying, well, my coin shop wouldn't buy any silver from me. And it's very geographically dependent. There were some people who were saying, yeah, I had no problem selling my silver. Other people who were saying, my shop won't buy any silver from me. So I thought it would be interesting to just do a quick look through what's going on here. Let's just, for simplicity's sake, we're going to say that spot price is 80. Now, what I found during the week was that there were places that if they were willing to buy the silver from someone, it was going to be $5 to $7 below spot that they were going to buy it. So you have your silver coins or your rounds, and the other interesting thing was that it almost didn't matter if they were, like silver eagles versus a silver round. This $5 to $7 below spot kind of around the country was what people were seeing. So that shop is going to buy it down here at 73. Now you come in and you want to buy silver. And so what the shop is going to do is they're then going to sell it to you at, like right now, APMEX is at $8.49, I think $8.49 above spot for their premium. So this is the margin. You take this 7 below and 8 above, that's the margin that shop is trying to make. Now, some people would, they're like, oh, the shops are just trying to take advantage of us. They're just trying to rip us off. Well, you got to think, you got to put yourself in the position of that shop, because when silver prices go through this kind of variability in 1 week, that shop, if they bought silver here and then they had to sell it when somebody came in and asked for silver down here, they risk losing money. So these shops are, even if they know us and they like us, they still have to make money. So they're still trying to be careful and manage these margins so that they're still making money. The other thing that I found that was interesting was a lot of these shops are now doing what's being referred to as buying on need. So here's what that means. When you and I go into a coin shop and want to sell our silver, the coin shop doesn't have to buy it from us, right? They can say, no, sorry, we're not buying right now. We are selling on our demand, but they don't have to buy it. What a lot of shops might do, though, is let's say somebody comes in and buys 200 ounces of silver from them. Now that shop can say, all right, well, I want to maintain a certain inventory of silver, so I'm going to buy 200 ounces to fill that, what I just sold. So they're buying on their need. The owners of the shops have decided, I want to keep a certain amount of silver on hand to be able to sell. And so when they sell a couple hundred ounces, they will then turn around and buy a couple hundred ounces. And if you happen to come in with that couple hundred ounces or, whatever you've got, then they'll probably buy from you. However, there's nothing that forces them to buy from you. They don't have to. So it's an interesting market right now where coin shops, pawn shops, aren't necessarily buying from people unless they need to backfill their inventory. And then that causes us to have to look at places like AppMex and KitGo and those folks that may not be paying as well, but might be more inclined to buy from us because they're much larger organizations and they have a lot more flexibility because of their deeper pockets. This was just such an interesting, week for looking at what was going on with silver in particular, and looking at what was going on with silver in the shops and how it's playing out for people. So I'm just curious if any of you have gone in to buy or sell any silver this week, and what your experience was as you attempted to buy or sell your silver. I, of course, did not, because I'm just really crazy busy right now. So there was no buying or selling on my part. It was just a crazy busy for me. So D Scrapper, welcome in. Thank you. I appreciate that. We are going to do the best we can to recover as fast as we can. Had a good conversation with the surgeon when they called me in this last week. And I told the surgeon, I said, look, I don't want to be down hard for a long time. I want to push my physical therapy so I can get back out there as quick as I can. And his surgeon said, yeah, well, there's pushing too hard and hurting yourself. There's not pushing yourself enough and taking too long in recovery. The goal of the physical therapy is to find that fine balance in the middle there. So that's where we're going to be. That's what we're going to be targeting. So I appreciate all the well wishes. Not looking forward to the surgery on the one hand, but definitely looking forward to it for getting done with all this discomfort I've been dealing with. William, welcome to the show. Great to have you on board. Maggle the Magnificent, welcome. Great to have you here. Is that? What other video was where Japan is offering 130? I didn't see that, or is that part of another conversation that I haven't been keeping up with? That may have been this conversation here that I missed. Let's see. Other videos I've been watching say that as of January 1st, China is no longer exporting silver, and the major manufacturers are going straight to the miners and trying to lock in price. Well, that could be. There's certainly, when we talk about aluminum, we're certainly going to see some issues going on there. So yeah, that could be interesting if China's going to play that game with silver too. Here we are. And you've seen videos that say Bank of America is calling for 300 an ounce. Okay, yeah. It's hard to say which way it's going to go there. I think that's a top end. But hey, it's not like I've got some magic ball that I can look at that tells me what the number's going to be, because as we used to say in the weather business, because I am a meteorologist, I used to forecast tropical cyclones for the Navy. And, as we used to say in the weather business, it's really easy to do a forecast. The hard part is the verification. Ian, welcome. Great to have you on board, sir, and happy birthday. It's great to have you here. All right, I think, did I get it? Oh, HH Recycling has joined us. Hey, HH, glad to have you here. I think I have said hello to everybody as you've been coming on, but if not, I apologize if I've missed you coming in. Yeah, there's some really interesting issues going on here. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just talk about this right away. because it's kind of related, but from a very different perspective here. RAM prices. Now, if you've done any of your own upgrades on computers, you know that RAM prices have gone insane this last year. In some cases, they have doubled or tripled. And I was looking into this. It was one of those side things that when I was looking at gold and stuff, and for some reason that popped up. And so I went down this little rabbit hole of RAM prices. And it was really interesting. So, with the explosion of AI data centers, they need a lot of RAM. They have a different kind of RAM than what we use in our in our personal computers. But there's only three companies out there making RAM. Uh, you've got Micron here in the U.S. You've got Samsung, and you've got SK Hynix in South Korea. And so what those three companies are doing, of course, is they're saying, okay, I've got this little consumer market for DDR4 and DDR5 RAM. And then I've got this great big huge AI market for this higher end RAM, high capacity RAM. I think I'm going to go ahead and concentrate on that high capacity RAM market because they're willing to buy huge quantities, paying huge dollars, and that is causing some problems for the consumer type RAM because even though it's the AI data centers are using a different type of RAM than we are, it's a lot of the same components, and so those components are being shifted from our consumer grade DDR4, DDR5 type RAM over to the AI data center high capacity RAM. And uh, so the supply of DDR5 RAM is drying up. DDR4, they may stop making. In fact, many of them had announced that they were going to stop making DDR4. Some of them said, no, we're going to extend that for a little bit longer. We don't know how much longer that's going to keep going. But the price for consumer grade RAM is going nuts. It's just exploding like crazy. So, and oh, by the way, Micron, the US manufacturer, has actually made a strategic decision. They're going to shift all into AI type RAM. So they're not even going to be making consumer grade RAM. So what that means is that let's take that now to us in the scrap market, scrap and recycling market. Maybe, I mean, we talk about this a lot when we talk about should we scrap our RAM or sell the RAM on eBay and stuff. And so I think it's probably important to take a look at your RAM. And if you've got some DDR4, DDR5, whether it's even as low as 4 gigabytes, 8 or 16 being better, of course, but you might want to think seriously and try a swing at eBay or marketplace or something like that before you sell that as scrap, because uh, that market is going nuts right now. And so you might do really well if you have some DDR4 or DDR5 that you can try to sell as a consumer product on aftermarket kind of thing on eBay. Now, of course, the problem is that uh, a RAM test slot, a RAM test equipment is very expensive. Yeah, you can put it in a computer and kind of test it. Real test equipment is really expensive because I looked into this at one point. Uh, but as long as on eBay, you put in there that it's not been tested or it was removed from a functional PC, current status unknown, something like that, you've covered your bases. So you've got some opportunity there with RAM beyond just the gold recovery value of RAM. So you might want to take a look at that. A little digression from the gold and silver chat that we've been having. Nicholas, welcome. Great to have you on board, Nick. You're right. It has been a while. It's very nice to have you here. Okay, time for our safety topic for the week. This one is a little bit different, and I'll tell you what really motivated this for me was doctor's office calls me in. Part of the workups for the surgery that I'm going to do is, of course, they want to know all the medications that I'm taking, and it got me to thinking, what would happen if if one of us is out there and we get injured and we're unconscious and the paramedics show up, and you are unable to tell the paramedics of the medications that you're on, could that be an issue? And it's going to depend a lot on the medications that you take. Now, a lot of you are good, healthy people, and you're probably not taking, much at all. But you know what? Even some of the vitamins and supplements that some people take can have bad interactions with medicines that paramedics and doctors in the emergency room might want to use. So, what I'm recommending is that you this week take a 3x5 card. All right, so just take your average, little 3x5 card here, or some other, small piece of cardboard, and write down the medications and supplements that you take. Your prescription meds, absolutely, but your supplements, and even if it's aspirin, because aspirin is a blood thinner, and so they, the emergency medical people, the doctors, they're going to want to know if you're on blood thinners. All right, so even if you're doing a low dose aspirin, routine, put that on there, and then stick that card in your wallet. Preferably, stick it right behind your driver's license, because if you are unconscious or you can't talk, the paramedics are going to want to know who you are. So either the paramedics or at the emergency room, they're going to try to find your wallet. They're going to try to find your driver's license or some other identification so that they know who you are. And if you have that little card in there and they go to pull out the driver's license and they see a card that says, here's the medications that I'm taking, and it wouldn't hurt to put an emergency contact number on there as well, you have made life a lot easier for them. Now, I don't know. Is it going to save your life? Maybe. But it only takes a few minutes to do something like that and stick it in your wallet and you're covered. The other thing I would suggest is, because most of us have it available, is after you write down the information on the card, take your packing tape and put your packing tape over it so that it's laminated. You probably don't have a laminating machine, but you probably have packing tape for when you pack up stuff that you're shipping off. So put a layer of packing tape, maybe double, put on both sides so that it's somewhat protected, and you've got it covered. It's easy, it's fast. It may never come up, it may never be needed, but if it is needed, then might be worth having there. You never know. It might just be, it might do some good for you. Loafer's here. Welcome, Loafer. This must be a comment, a follow-on from another comment, I'm guessing. Must be. And I thought I saw somebody else come on board here. Andrew. Andrew came in. So, just so you all understand, Andrew's in New Zealand, and we got folks going all the way over to Europe. So, we are spanning the globe here, folks, spanning the globe. Uh, yeah, that sounds like what you would. Oh man. Oh man, that is funny. Yeah, clear tape. Exactly, Irish clear tape. Don't put, solid brown packing tape on it. Ah, I'm not gonna. Yeah, we're not gonna go there. Oh man. All right. That yeah. Let's get moving. We've got a bunch more. We got to cover copper and aluminum still. So let's get over here to copper. Copper futures stabilized near 5.8 on Friday, following a sharp 2-day sell-off. And here you are. This is 1 year, but let's go to the 1 week so we can see we had copper was climbing. Here's the sell-off they were talking about. So here was copper climbing. Here's the sell-off, and then it climbed back out again. Um, and let's see. Prices surged to record highs amid concerns that the Trump administration could impose new tariffs on refined metals, potentially diverting shipments into the U.S. and constraining supply elsewhere. So remember a while back, the Trump administration levied tariffs on copper containing products, but they did not put tariffs on the refined copper anodes, or those things. They left that open, and there's talk that they might do that. So when that happens, of course, then people try to front load copper into the United States to get ahead of the tariff. That causes supply constraints in other places like Europe, and so it throws off the pricing, and it becomes, very regionally unbalanced. So you're going to see that going on. Also, on the supply side, risks were further highlighted by comments from an executive at Australia's BHP Group, who warned that the copper market could face structural deficit from 2030 to 2035, and urged an increase in production. But the mines that are out there that are operating are having some problems, right? They've had cave-ins, they've had people die, they've had geopolitical problems that have shut them down. So you've got some issues going on the supply side that could just continue to exacerbate the demand and therefore pricing for copper. On the demand side, speaking of demand side, sentiment remains supported by expectations of strong consumption tied to power grid updates, renewable energy investment, and the expansion of data centers. However, weakness in China's construction sector, a key source of demand, continues to pose a potential headwind. So, because China is such a huge country with so many people and such a big influence on the demand for the copper market, when things slow down there, it can have a ripple effect around the world. But you've also got, on the other side, that there's mines that have shut down, there's supply issues going on. So copper's in a real push me, pull you kind of situation. And it's hard to say, how this is, playing out. But let's go back here to the 1 year. Doink. Let's go back here to the 1 year signal. We have been living through all of this volatility, right? Copper climbs and then tanks, and copper climbs and then tanks, and now we're climbing again. And I see all these. I've been seeing a lot of YouTube videos about people who are recommending that you invest in copper bars and stuff like that. It's like, come on, people, be smart. Don't get carried away in this rush. Let's take a look at the forecast for copper. And we do see that there's a nice forecast for copper, right? And they're saying here that for the year, in the next 12 months, the year ahead, they're looking at 6.62. I have seen other numbers that put copper at $7 a pound by 2030, um, and and then kind of settling out a little bit. Others are saying, yeah, it's going to keep on going up from there, but not huge. So the most important thing that I would urge with copper is don't get carried away and be buying these quote unquote investment copper bars that you see people advertising on YouTube and other places, because they're usually charging way too much for those things. I mean, if you can get a good deal on something, fine, but don't be buying that stuff because we're scrappers and recyclers, and we can find copper. We don't need to go out and be buying these copper bars. What you really ought to be doing, if you got the wherewithal, is go ahead and make some copper bars and sell it to those chuckleheads that are out there not thinking and are panic buying copper because they think that's going to be the next silver or gold investment. So it's definitely, be careful. But hey, we in the scrap and recycling world, we can find copper and we can be the people selling into this copper market, making some good money on it. And I would say, sell your low grade copper where, to keep your cash flow going. Hold back 20% or so of your good stuff, your number one copper, your Bear Bright, unless you need the cash, and be ready so that you can sell into these nice price rises that are coming in the year ahead. Because there's some good potential for copper out there. And the other, the other thing that you might want to think about is, as soon as I am well after my surgery, copper and gold and silver are all going to tank and crash. So I'll let you know. I'll try to give you some heads up when the doctor tells me that I can get back to work, because we know that's when the market will tank. Richard saying he expects copper to climb this year. Been saying all last year, still holding his. He's got about 600 pounds. That's if you have the space, and copper is one of those metals that you can get a lot of weight in a small amount of space, because it's pretty dense. So there's nothing wrong with hanging on to your copper if you've got the space and you don't need the space for it. I mean, the money right now, you might as well hang on to it. If you do need the cash flow, though, sell your lower grade and hang on to your good stuff, or at least a percentage of your good stuff, as a strategic reserve. William, you're spot on. With every high, there's a low, and you're going to miss one, and you can catch the other. Absolutely. It's the one thing that you're guaranteed to do if you're trying to chase the highs, is that you're going to miss it. So that's why I say, keeping some of your strategic reserve gives you some flexibility to adjust into that. All right, and I want to get over to aluminum here. Let's see. You do this. I got to do a bunch of button pushing to get to aluminum because it's on a different chart. So you don't need to see me go doing all that button pushing. So aluminum also had a pretty good, this is a 1-year chart for aluminum. So we see aluminum climbing here. Aluminum futures in the UK eased to around 3,090 per ton, but remain close to an 3-year high amid mounting signs of later supply for manufacturers. China, the world's top aluminum producer, reiterated its priority of preventing overcapacity. We've been talking about this now. that China, is dialing back what their manufacturers can put out there for aluminum. Uh, so as the country was set to breach its 45 million ton output cap. But what some Chinese companies are trying to do to get around that is get out of the country and go into Indonesia, but they're having trouble there. They can't get the permits. They don't have the energy there. Remember, primary aluminum from bauxite is very energy intensive. So that's going to continue to cause some supply side issues. And a number of other mines have also had some problems. They talk about here, issues in Iceland, Mozambique, and Australia. This is good for us, though, because, and here, let me pop up the forecast. We will see that aluminum is going to continue to rise, not as steep as copper, but it's still got a nice rise going there. But the reason why this is good for us is because recycled aluminum takes 95% less energy to turn back into another aluminum product than primary aluminum. So the secondary or recycled aluminum market is very strong, and people as in companies, are investing in more recycling capacity, which means our aluminum that we recycle is going to continue to have pretty decent value. Now, is it going to be copper kind of value? No, but it's going to be good value, and it should keep a nice slow rise moving forward. So aluminum is a really good cash flow metal for us. It's in a lot of places. We find it a lot in the electronic scrap world, in the heat sinks and some of the casings. A lot of pieces of aluminum that we find. If you're in street scrapping and larger scrapping, you got aluminum window frames and construction pieces. There's so much aluminum out there. And if you put a little work into it to get it cleaned up, you can even get better value for it. And then, of course, there's aluminum cans. And it's funny, when I don't buy soda so much anymore, but I do buy some flavored waters and stuff just to have something different to drink. And I will buy it in aluminum cans rather than in plastic, because I can get the aluminum cans recycled, whereas I cannot get the plastic recycled. So, aluminum is a really good metal for us to have. So keep selling your aluminum as your cash flow product. We're getting ready to wrap up here. Before we head across the pond, I wanted to show you what Salvager 2 has been doing, because Salvager 2 has been cruising. I mean, holy cow, she's over here getting ready to head in Nolens for Mardi Gras or something, I guess. I don't know. Look at this. I mean, here, let me zoom in here a bit more. So here she is, the 3rd of January, down here by Nolens. That's like, holy cow, man, she is on the move. And remember, for those of you that may not remember, when she was tagged, she was all the way up here off Canada. And then she made her way down the east coast of the United States. And now she's up here in the Gulf. And I mean, who knows where she is going to be heading. It's just, it's just so interesting to watch this. Remember, those of you who are members of the Shiver, you play a direct role in naming the sharks that we adopt, and we will be adopting another shark, at least one in 2026, maybe two. So if you are one of the top tier members of the Great White Sharks, you get to submit names for consideration, and then our next tier gets to pare those names down to what everybody votes on. So one of the big benefits that you get as being part of the Shiver is direct involvement in naming the sharks that we adopt. That's That's such a cool thing. And Salvager, by the way, that name actually came from boardsort.com, who is one of our Great White Shark members. And Dr. Hammerslag, who runs the Shark Research Foundation, is so supportive of the support we're giving him that when Salvager 1's tag didn't really work real well and had some problems, he tagged another shark, called it Salvager 2, because of the support that we give them. So, um, it's fascinating to watch where she's going and what she's up to. Well, speaking of swimming around, it is time for us to head across the pond. So, if you have autoplay enabled, you don't have to do anything. When I end this stream, you will be automatically redirected to Ireland, where we will join Scrapping Irish. You never know where that's going to go, because it's a Q&A driven discussion. We can carry on with questions from this stream, or you can ask your questions there. So it's a lot of fun. We never know what's going to play out when we're there. If you do not have autoplay enabled, then please go on that YouTube search bar, type in Scrapping Irish, look for his live stream, and join us over there, because it's always a lot of fun. We're always learning new stuff, and we get some real good giggles out of it too. Oh, Solers, welcome. Sorry I missed you coming in, but I'm glad I caught you there and scrapping on the fly. Glad I got to say hello to you too before I'm checking out. If I don't see you over in Ireland, have a very safe week. I will be scrambling like crazy, getting the shark cage shut down, getting inventory moved out. And otherwise, I plan to see you all next week. Be safe.